Not only does this website explore some of the individual circumstances surrounding Abraham Lincoln's relationship with specific women or specific circumstances, but this document set also explores Lincoln's connection to women as a whole, and some of the writings that Lincoln has demonstrate the way he viewed women in general, not just specifically. As we explore these documents, we really want to take a look at two essential questions and ask ourselves, do Lincoln's views on liberty extend to women? We talk so much about Lincoln's role in the emancipation of slaves and his evolving view about rights and privileges. Do they also apply to women? Is he progressive in his views on women's rights as he was when it came to race relations? So hopefully these documents will help to formulate your opinions on some of these matters. Our first document, Document A, comes from 1836 when Lincoln announced his candidacy for the legislature in Illinois. And it is a letter from Abraham Lincoln to the Sangamo Journal in which he makes this announcement. Said Lincoln, "In your paper of last Saturday, I see a communication over the signature of many voters in which the candidates who are announced in the journal are called upon to show their hands. Agreed, here's mine. I go for all sharing the privileges of government, who assist in bearing its burdens. Consequently, I go for admitting all whites to the right of suffrage who pay taxes or bear arms, by no means excluding females." Some might argue that by this, Lincoln is specifically saying that women should have the right to vote, saying that they should have the right to suffrage. But most women did not pay taxes if they didn't own property at the time or they did not bear arms. And so perhaps he wasn't exactly being a true supporter of women's suffrage, although he does allude to this fact here in this letter all the way back in 1836. Women suffragists would later use this letter as an argument that Lincoln did indeed support the right for women to vote. They made this poster in 1910, slightly changed the text of Lincoln's letter, but nonetheless saying that Lincoln said women should vote. Our next document, Document B, are the remarks of Abraham Lincoln at a sanitary fair in Washington, D.C. in 1864. Sanitary fairs were events that were organized and put on by women in different cities throughout the United States during the Civil War in order to raise money for troops who were returning from, troops and families who were returning from the fighting. Pictured here we have a depiction of a similar sanitary fair that occurred in Baltimore, which will be the basis of Document C. But at the sanitary fair in Washington, D.C., Lincoln said, "In this extraordinary war, extraordinary developments have manifested themselves, such as have not been seen in former wars. And amongst these manifestations, nothing has been more remarkable than these fairs for the relief of suffering soldiers and their families. And the chief agents in these fairs are the women of America. I am not accustomed to the use of language of eulogy. I have never studied the art of paying compliments to women. But I must say that if all that has been said by orators and poets since the creation of the world in praise of woman were applied to the women of America, it would not do them justice for their conduct during this war. I will close by saying God bless the women of America." Obviously here Lincoln is being quite complimentary of women and their role in America. So we have to ask ourselves, does this fit in with any pattern we've seen emerging and how Lincoln has dealt with women or viewed women in the past? The next document is from a month later at another sanitary fair in Baltimore, Maryland. This time Lincoln is talking about a different topic. He gives a well-known speech in which he talks about the nature of liberty, and he talks about the justification for using African American soldiers in the Union military and the different views between those in the North and those in the South. While he's not talking about women, we do need to consider the context. Lincoln chose this place and this time to give a very important speech about his views on liberty. He understood that this was an event that was put on by women. There were many women who would be there, be in the audience. And so we have to ask ourselves, why did Lincoln choose this opportunity to give this speech? And does the fact that he chose to give the speech here at this time and in this place tell us anything about the way he viewed women in America? Said Lincoln, "The shepherd drives the wolf from the sheep's throat, for which the sheep thanks the shepherd as a liberator, while the wolf denounces him for the same act as the destroyer of liberty, especially as the sheep was a black one. Plainly, the sheep and the wolf are not agreed upon a definition of the word liberty, and precisely the same difference prevails today among us human creatures, even in the North, and all professing to love liberty. Hence we behold the processes by which thousands are daily passing from under the yoke of bondage, hailed by some as the advance of liberty, and bewailed by others as the destruction of all liberty. Recently, as it seems, the people of Maryland have been doing something to define liberty, and thanks to them, that in what they have done, the Wolf's Dictionary has been repudiated. Our final document in this document set is a short note from Abraham Lincoln to Secretary of War Edwin Stanton. And this note concerned a petition by women to the governor of Pennsylvania, Andrew Curtin, which the governor had forwarded to the president, and it had to do with the issue of women's pay. So in order to provide the proper context, we'll take a look first at the petition which was forwarded by Andrew Curtin to Abraham Lincoln. And in this petition, the women of Pennsylvania say, "At the breaking out of the rebellion that is now deluging our land with blood, and which for a time threatened the destruction of the nation, the prices paid at the United States Arsenal in this city were barely sufficient to enable the women engaged upon government work to earn a scanty respectable subsistence. Since the period referred to, board, provisions, and all other articles of female consumption have advanced to such an extent as to make an average of at least 75%, while women's labor has been reduced 30%. What need of argument? To an intelligent mind the result must be apparent, and it is perhaps superfluous to say that it has produced great suffering, privation, and in many instances actual hunger. Such, however, is the truth. To alleviate this misery, feed the hungry, clothe the naked, and house the houseless, we appeal to those in authority for a just and reasonable compensation for our labor." Lincoln responds by forwarding this petition to Edwin Stanton, saying, "I know not how much is within the legal power of the government in this case, but it is certainly true in equity that the laboring women in our employment should be paid at least as much as they were at the beginning of the war. Will the Secretary of War please have the case fully examined, and so much relief given as can be consistently with the law and the public service?" At this point, one needs to ask, does this show that Lincoln is supporting the advancement of women's rights and women's equality? Or does this simply show that Lincoln is supporting the status quo, that women should not have their wages reduced, but merely stayed the same? That's up to the historian to decide whether this is showing a progressive Lincoln or a Lincoln who wants to maintain things the way they are. These four documents ask us to reflect on Lincoln's views on liberty. Did he want to extend these views on liberty to women? Was he progressive when it came to the way he viewed women in America?